This is the product review that you've been waiting for.
I haven't.
You have. Everyone has. And I'm going to save you a lot of time. Right out of the gate, I love it. So you can hit stop and you can go on with your life. Or you can stay here with me and let me continue to talk to you about the Nyos Skimmer. This is the Nyos Quantum 300. I have officially been using it for 6 months. I worked on doing a product review about this about 2 months ago. And when I played it back on my computer, I sounded depressed. I sounded bored. I hated the review. So I couldn't release it because I love the skimmer. And it made no sense that I was sitting here sounding one way and feeling differently inside. And I thought, I got to reshoot this. So here I am in front of my 400-gallon reef. This skimmer is rated for up to 1,000 gallons. I'm not positive you can do it with 1,000 gallons, but I definitely think you can do 500, 600, 800 gallons for sure. And this replaced the Reef 12-3 that I had on my skimmer, or on my system previously for about 14 years. So, you know, having me change to something different is actually like pulling teeth. I'm usually fighting that tooth and nail. The skimmer itself is relatively heavy, but once it's set down inside your sump, it's going to need a footprint of 13 inches by 18 inches. The skimmer stands 25.5 inches tall up to the lid. And on the back side here is your adjustment knob to set and lower the water level that will match in these two areas. So typically I've set it, I don't touch it, and the water level is right around this point. Now I've taken the skimmer out of my sump 2 different times in the last 6 months to clean it. I did it a couple months ago for the review that I didn't release because I hated the way I did it. And then I did it again today. And I take it down completely to its core. I remove everything. The entire body comes off because you remove these screws. And you'll see that in some footage that I filmed earlier. As well as the 2 pumps. These are the Quantum 5.0 pumps. I'm told that to replace those pumps would run about $150 each. So I'm kind of the kind of guy that would want to have an extra one of that sitting on the shelf right now. Because if I'm missing a pump, the skimmer's not going to skim. It's got a 1-year warranty, but we know things go wrong, and usually it goes wrong on Friday, or it goes wrong on Saturday, or it goes wrong on Sunday, and nobody's open until Monday. And then you have to order it and wait for the pump to come in. So having that extra pump sitting on site is what I recommend. And it's, of course, your choice. You might say, hey, I'm getting a skimmer with a warranty, but I like to have backups. I just like to be prepared. The collection cup has a domed lid to help keep the Skimmate going down inside the cup, and it gathers in here. And then there's a plug to clog this so nothing comes out. But I've been running mine with this tube into a waste collector. And the way my waste collector is set up, that once the collector is full, a sensor will then rise up inside, and my Apex controller turns off one pump on the skimmer. So then it's at a low idle. It's got some foam in there, but it's not doing the full skim until I get the waste collector emptied. And by doing that, I never have a mess. Now I want to talk about this little part right here, so I'm going to turn this around again. This is the air silencer, and this is why I love the Nyos skimmer the most. I've had multiple people come over and they're like, wow, that skimmer is massive. And I'm like, do you hear it? And they say no. So I make them get under the tank. I make them put their head in the sump, and I turn the skimmer off, and then I turn the skimmer on. And I ask them, what do you hear? And they say nothing. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear it turn off. I didn't hear it turn on. It's dead silent. So if you're wanting a dead silent skimmer, this is a skimmer for you. These little knobs on top allow you to control how much air is going into each one of the air intakes, but I leave them wide open. I have no reason to reduce the amount of air going in. I just kind of want maximum air going in. And I'm only adjusting the water level to set it so it foams at the correct level. I like to have the foam bubbles right around this high, right at the base of the cup, and then it builds up and goes over. And if for some reason it's going over too much, then I would have to adjust the knob to lower the water level slightly to control it so it doesn't make a mess. If you imagine this skimmer right now sitting in a sump, it would be sitting in a certain amount of water. It's designed to sit in, I believe, 8.5 inches of water. And so I have a 1-inch skimmer stand in my sump to lift it up slightly. So with this area being just clear water and all the bubble production happening up higher in the body, what's coming out through this fitting and out this base is clear water without microbubbles. No microbubbles in a reef tank is best. This skimmer retails at $1,200, and it is something that originally Ecotech thought might not be popular here in the US, and they only brought in a limited amount, like 2 or 3. And they've been selling them, so they're going to bring them in now. So those of you with big systems, you can definitely get this. Energy consumption on this skimmer is incredible. It has 2 pumps, and each pump uses 30 watts. This is using 60 watts total to skim my entire reef 24 hours a day. And my old skimmer used 90 watts. So I'm already saving 1/3 of the electricity that I used to pay with this skimmer. The heart of the skimmer are the pumps. And with the Quantum 300, there are 2 Quantum 5.0 pumps inside there. And they are what create all the foam that you need to pull the organics out of your system. So you have an intake tube where water is drawn in, and a venturi tube on the side that will then bring in air. This comes out very easily. It's just held in by friction or suction when it's running, and this can be removed. It's very important that this part here be always clean and not obstructed with salt. So taking this off from time to time and cleaning it with a pipe cleaner would be wise, and make sure there is no obstructions visibly anywhere within this. So the air and water combine right into that needle wheel impeller that then shreds the water, shreds the air, creates a nice foam, these 2 different ports, and hits a blocking plate that then sends the water and air through the bubble plate right here. The bubble plate's a little bit hard to clean. I did the best I could. This is again after 6 months use, so it's not that bad. I think a nice solution to getting this completely clean is to set this up in a tub of vinegar water and let it run for a few hours and really get it all pristine again. The one thing I have not tried with this skimmer is ChemiClean. And it was one of those things I thought I was going to do, but I just never grew any cyano, so there was no point to put my system through that just to see what a skimmer looks like when it overflows. So instead I chose not to do that, but I did run it with Phosphate RX quite often. I use that product about every 10 weeks, so it's probably been used about 4 times with this skimmer. And it worked just fine. I know when I used Prodibio's Reef Booster, which is their food, their microfood, and when I used Coral Vits, which is their vitamin solution, it caused the skimmer to go a little nuts, and I had to make adjustments to resolve that. The ability to take it apart and clean it is very easy to be accomplished. I've used just a simple screwdriver for the complete disassembly. And the collection cup, I like that when you take it off, you can clean it completely. There's no weird obstacles. It's just a very simple straight through. Don't mind the water, just got to rinse it. I like to clean the inside of the neck very often. So every couple of days, I'll take a credit card and I'll scrape the inside if I'm not using the Skimmer Swabby. I was using the Skimmer Swabby until recently. The motor died on it again, so I got to buy another motor. I just kill those motors once a year, it seems. Other than that, I really can't tell you much more about this part. I don't know, for example, if it's an AC pump or a DC pump. I know that it plugs into AC. There's no little power brick, so I believe it's AC. I tried to Google it. I don't know the answer. Now, the valve tells you which way to turn it. It says the word close on it. So as you pivot this, you would think in your head, I'm unscrewing this because you're turning the opposite direction you're used to. And as I close the valve, what I'm doing is I'm blocking the amount of water that can exit, and that will raise the water level within the body of the skimmer. And I'm making a lot of turns because it's a brand new skimmer. I have to find that sweet spot. I've never run a cone skimmer before, so this is actually kind of a cool test. And with the new frag system that I'm setting up, this pipe will be out of my way soon enough because I'm getting rid of the manifold, and then I'll be able to see the skimmer very easily and access it more simply. You can see the drain line from the collection cup is right at the edge of my sump. It'd almost be nicer to lift it up another inch or so just to make that drop down a little bit, but I'll connect some tubing to this and send it into the waste collector. Hopefully. Now, one thing I can say about the skimmer versus my own is that it's quieter, and I knew that going in. Number one, the pumps are inside the body of the skimmer, but they were inside the sump underwater, so I didn't really notice them. There was a little bit of a hum, but not much. But I don't hear the air being sucked into the venturis like I used to with the Eheim pumps because of that silencer, which I never had on the other skimmer. So I was looking forward to that. And then once I change the way the water enters the sump, I've got this little cover plate I want to make with some bulkheads. I think that'll trap the sound of the water dumping into the sump, and that should make everything really quiet. So I've got Vortec pumps, I've got the Nyos skimmer. I mean, it can't get quieter than that overall for a 400-gallon system. For it to be dead silent is crazy, because if you hear nothing, there's no life. Usually where there's noise, there's life. So to have a little bit of the noise from your reef Shouldn't bother you. It's not a museum piece. It's actually a living biotope. Go a little bit more. Like I said, I think I want the level about even with the bottom of the coupling where the neck connects to the body. Within mere seconds of turning this on, I could already tell how well it was creating a nice, clean, smooth foam. It's been running for about 10 minutes, so here's a decent close-up of the bubbles. You can see they're already starting to build a foam head. The body is filling up with nice micro bubbles. Yet look at the very bottom of the skimmer here where it's pouring back into the skimmer section, bubble-free, which is totally what one would expect. This type of design traps all the bubbles in the upper section of the skimmer so that the water exporting will be nice and clear. It's only a matter of time for the foam to build up to the point where some will pour over into the top of the cup. Here are a couple of stills of the skimmer. And then you'll see I've already got the tube going into the waste collector because once that thing starts collecting liquid, I want it to go into the waste collector to shut off the skimmer when the collector is full. This skimmer's been running for a solid day, and you can see it's already gathering some gunk up in the upper section of the neck. Almost made it into the cup. Let's go ahead and take a look from the other side. I've made no adjustments to it other than just let it run. Pardon the mess. Everything's in the middle of changeover. You can see how the bubbles are large in the neck right now after 24 hours of skimming. And there's a little bit of a mess on the inner rim, which it's what I would expect with a skimmer that has no swabby. And you can see some skimmate has happened down here, but not quite enough to drain out yet. But there's a tiny bit of liquid right there. And what I did was I modified this tube. I just found another piece that fit in there perfectly. So it goes into the waste collector, which has a float switch installed. And when that switch rises, it would shut off the skimmer. So this is day 6. Time to take a look and see what's going on. I've noticed this condensation inside the cup that I'm not really used to with my Euro reef, even though there's vents in the top of the lid, which you can kind of see right there. Let's go ahead and scrape out some of the neck because the neck is filthy. And you can kind of see how thick it is. I'm just going to go ahead and scrape it here. It's like a mud. Definitely pulling out the skimmate I'm used to seeing. So in that regard, it is the same as the Euro reef. And it seems to be keeping up very nicely. I know how people discuss skimmers need to break in, and I don't know. I don't really see that this was actually a thing. It seems to do exactly what I need. I'm wondering if maybe if I clean the cup in the sink, which I haven't done yet. This is exactly how I've left it since I set it up. But I'm wondering if I clean it for the first time, so to speak, maybe the condensation thing will stop because it's just new plastic. I woke up to a bunch of texts telling me that the skimmer is full. And here is the waste collector, which I haven't touched since setting this up. And you can see how much skimmate came out basically overnight. So a whole bunch came out last night for whatever reason. We didn't have any change in weather, so it's not a parametric pressure situation. So one of the pumps in the skimmer has shut off because the waste collector is designed to do exactly that, to keep my floors nice and dry, which worked. See, dry floors, that's a good thing. So you can see how there is quite a bit of foam inside the body of the skimmer that has been trying to build up, but the water level dropped to that area right down there, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So this was a successful moment. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean the cup, clean the waste collector, and set it up anew. And I'm going to go ahead and use some phosphate RX to remove some phosphate from the system and see what the skimmate looks like. Alrighty, all cleaned up and ready to go. It built up a foam head very quickly, probably within a minute. Doesn't hurt that there was a bunch of foam in the body ready to go. All I had to do was get that second pump fired up once the waste collector was emptied out. Once the tank has been dosed with phosphate RX, what I end up seeing come out in the collection cup is more of a milky type of skimmate. It'll seem more chalky in the collection cup, and you'll see it especially on the lid. Looking closely at how the bubbles rise within the body of the skimmer can tell you quite a bit if it's an efficient unit or not. In this case, you have superfine bubbles that rise up into larger bubbles, and this is what the dirt is attracted to. And that dirt then bubbles up to the top. And you'll see that this is a constant movement of bubbles. It's not a burping, it's not rising and collapsing. This is exactly what you want to see with a good quality skimmer. After running the skimmer for a couple of months without a skimmer swabby, I finally hooked mine up. And you can see how the wiper blade is touching the neck of the skimmer, and this would pivot around and keep it nice and clean. I just got it installed here, and it has made my life easier ever since because it will rotate every 3 hours for a couple of minutes to keep the neck clean. The next step of this project is to clean the skimmer. It's been running for several months, and I wanted to see what it's like to unscrew the base from the body and how to remove the pumps and how to take the pumps apart and clean them. I know this is already a sense of scale next to a human being, but I just want to show you this. This is the collection cup for my Reef Octopus skimmer that is under the 60-gallon tank, which is kind of an oversized skimmer for that tank, but it's what I have. And here's a regular collection cup. So you can see it's quite a bit different. And because it's so large, I couldn't even install it on the body because of the cabinetry. I'd get too close to the edge, knock the whole thing over. I just wanted to show it to you. So I'm going to go ahead and time-lapse this one and take it all apart and clean it, and we'll see what happens. Okay, we'll stop the fast-forward motion. I started to unscrew this, and I thought, you might want to see that in real time. So this one came off super easy, and the screw came out, and the piece comes off that holds it in place. So we'll grab a new one, just to kind of show you. I mean, I really thought this might build up over time and be hard to clean. It's been about 3 months since I turned the skimmer on, and the screw came right out. That was not an issue. I didn't have some kind of calcium deposit, so it would hold it tight. All right, so this is one of the Venturi inlets that goes into the pump. If you look closely, you'll see there's salt creep or something in there. I'm going to assume it's salt and not some kind of silicone or glue from the original build. I'm going to try and clean that out so that the orifice is completely opened up. It's definitely salt, because it's coming out in little pieces. So I'm glad I did this. Let's see if we can get this to focus again. See how it moved? Gotta get all that out. Now, if you had soaked this in vinegar water for a while first, I'm sure that would help speed this up along. But I just wanted to get this cleaned and back into my system. Okay, there's 2 of these. They need to be cleaned out. Now, it's a lot better. I think I'll still pick at it a little bit, but you don't have to watch every second. I'm going to get every little bit of that out of there. This is some silicone grease from Home Depot. Looks like silicone. It's a lubricant for O-rings. Just need a little tiny bit. We'll apply it to the O-ring on the outside here where the housing grabs on. So that way this O-ring will last longer. thought I'd show you how to install the pump. I already installed one before. You'll notice there's a notch in the back. That is for the cord. So that's your clue if you've taken it completely apart and you're trying to remember which way it goes. There's a little notch right here as well as on the other side. This notch is going to line up with that lump. And then the other piece has an equal matching notch that will be going on this side. So you have to make sure these line up. If you try and go this backwards, it's not going to go together. So just something to know. Line it up, get it on that notch, place this guy underneath. All right, I'm not really sure how they did this. You know how you start something, you're like, well, how did they put this together? They've outwitted me, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's something stupid obvious, but everything seems to be glued or is tight together. I tried to unscrew this to make this maybe drop out so I could clean the inside, which I'm not able to. I tried to draw it up, but it doesn't go up, but about this far, so that stops it. Not sure what they did or how they did it, but regardless, I got it clean as best I could. Pretty important, if you get to this point and you've taken apart this much, make sure that this aperture matches the aperture on the body of the skimmer. And I removed this. Let me put this back on. That is the air silencer. Fits around this collar. See, I even got a little bit of water in here. I'm not sure how it's going to get out. I don't know how it got in there. There's no obvious drain. I mean, obviously a little bit of water snuck past it maybe. Whatever. So we are lining this up with the system here. I see a small hole here. I think a piston, some kind of a screw was supposed to go through there, or I don't know, a little rivet. It's not in here. Didn't come with one, I didn't lose it. You can turn the silencer to either side of the skimmer. So make sure that lined up inside. I don't know if you can make that out, but that is perfectly lined up. And then this is ready to go back on top. I just have to get this one cord back in place where it belongs. And this is ready to screw back together again. I realized that I am doing a review about a really large skimmer, but there are different models of this skimmer, and they're going to follow the same principles in theory. And I want to go ahead and say that I am so happy with the way this skimmer ran that I want to go ahead and get a smaller one for my 60-gallon system. Not because they match, but because it's so darn silent and it runs so well. All right, that part's done. Now, I didn't actually clean the venturi nozzles yet, the tubing, but I want to talk about these. Those fit right in there. If I have one complaint, and I actually do have a complaint, and that's that these are too loose. And it's not a matter of, oh, well, you know, whatever. No, it's a big deal, and I'll explain why. When you turn on this skimmer, that nozzle has to be installed in that spot. And if for some reason it flops out like this, it's not going to skim at all. It's not going to do anything at all. So that's a problem. And I realize I have a prototype. And maybe by this point, because I've had it for a few months, maybe they have made many more and taken care of this. Odds are they took care of it. I don't really have a solution of what I can put around this to make it a little bit thicker, barring actually putting something on there like some kind of an epoxy to make it thicker and then sanding it to where it's tighter. But the bottom line is that it needs to stay in there better than it does. It's a little too loose. When it's running, it won't come out. It absolutely will stay in there the whole time. I've had it run nonstop for months with no issue. But when the power goes out, the back pressure of the water pumping out of the body through these two can knock one of them out. And what's been happening, I don't know if I reversed these by any chance, and if the one's slightly different than the other, this is the one that kept coming out. So this one would tilt out like that, and if I saw the skimmer body running around this height instead of being full of bubbles, I'd have to reach into the water of the sump, and I'd have to get that back into place and get it going. And I really didn't want to have to like rig some kind of a object in the way to act like as a splint to keep it in place. You can't put it up against the wall of the sump because then you wouldn't get any kind of water sucking in along with the air. So it had to have something, it needs to hold on. So that is my negative about this exact model of the skimmer, the prototype from Macno. Like I said, they might have made a better one since then, or they might have changed the tolerances just a hair, and now it's nice and tight, and that would be fantastic because this should hold. And I did tell them this. It's not like I'm waiting to the review to reveal this. I let them know almost immediately when I set it up. And then I thought over time it would slime over and it would hold on better. No, that one kept letting go. This one never came out. It stayed in the whole time. So what I did was when I set it up in my waste collector and the waste collector fills to the top and then shuts off one pump from the skimmer, I had to turn off the one that doesn't fall out. So this one would stay on, providing the vacuum that would keep sucking it in all the time so it would never move. So in the entire time I ran it, it probably popped out 4 times total after I discovered the issue in the first place on day 1. But I still used it as a skimmer the entire time, worked fantastic, and I love that part. I just wish this would hold on better. If you put Teflon tape or anything else, I imagined with the suction going into the needle wheel impeller that it would just unravel that crap and take it in and break off the needles or clog up the pump. I didn't want to take that chance. So I just used it the way it was and kind of grumbled about it. That was it. To remove this crud that's trapped inside, I used an air compressor, but I wish that this part would be able to be pulled apart to clean it out thoroughly. Now I've told you guys how much I love my skimmer swabby. I mean, I really like having this on my reef. And what it is it's a motor that moves very slowly that turns this squeegee. I had to go ahead and order this squeegee from a Bass Marine because it had to be a larger size to fit this collection cup. The other one was a little smaller, and this part here, well, it didn't extend far enough that direction to make contact when I had to turn. And a magic thing for me, when someone hands you a skimmer and says, test this, you don't expect their lid to be the exact diameter of your skimmer swabby lid. So that was awesome. It fit on there perfectly. I don't have much room with this cabinet. I'm gonna have to cheat here. Let's bring this toward the edge and scare you guys. But it just fit on there perfectly. I was like, oh, that is awesome. So my swabby has been on this skimmer for the last 10 days. And made my life so much better because every 2 days I was taking a sponge and wiping out the neck so it would remain efficient. It definitely was building up with gunk like crazy. Now let me go get the waste collector and show you what that pulled out for the last few days. And I think that'll be the last part of the skimmer cleaning section of this review. Here's the waste collector. This is who made this? Oh, there it is. Bash C. I got this at a frag swap for 20 bucks. I was like, yes, I'll take it. And it has a float switch inside. This is what I talked about. When this rises, it shuts off one pump on the skimmer. And that's the Skimmate I pulled out in the last few days. And yes, that's not shaken up or stirred or done anything extra to be exciting. That's just how it was when I picked it up off the floor of the sump, or off the floor of the fish room. And yes, it reeks. So There's going to be the lighter colored tea looking stuff, and then some sludge will come out. And that's what it pulled out for the last couple of days. Now, does the skimmer work as promised? Absolutely. I'm very happy with that. And it kept up my 450 gallons. I have something around 50, 60 fish, 6 tangs, and I don't have nuisance algae all over my tank. So I know the skimmer was doing a great job exporting waste, not to mention I could see it. Just dialing it in. And closing the door to raise the bubble level inside the body. When I change out my new plumbing, this pipe is going away where there'll be a much better view. Now, I also fed the tank before I took the skimmer out, so there's some food in the water which affects how the bubbles work. So I don't want to over dial this in and have a big mess or have my waste collector filled to the top while I'm sleeping tonight. I love a nice clean skimmer. And I do recommend you clean your skimmer at least 2 times a year, completely from top to bottom. This won't take long to get right back to its normal routine. I love this skimmer to the point that I bought another one. So this one is going on my frag system. And this little guy is rated from 25 gallons to 130 gallons, so it's going to do just fine for my 60-gallon system. It's designed to sit in 8.5 inches of water. It's got a small collection cup. It has no drain on it, so when the cup is full, it's full. And the same adjustment to change the water line within the body. And it assembles the exact same way, it's just smaller. It has the small little intake, where this one has 2 intakes on the front. I'm pretty excited to get it installed. I've been waiting to reveal this in the video, and then you'll see it on my frag system when it's all running. Here's the Nyos skimmer installed in the sump inside the frag system. And the next day, this is how much Skimmate was pulled out. Obviously, I'd been working in the tank, but it did its job perfectly. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. Please share, subscribe, and like. It says you can clean this in 10% citric acid. Like, who has that many oranges?